For those of you that don't know me, my name's Jonathan, and I run Freelance Credit Control. My credit control journey started back in 2002 when I was working for Travis Perkins, and I've been quite lucky over the last 22 years to work for a number of large organisations and have opportunities to learn from them. I've learned various things about credit control, about how to help people to get invoices paid, and benefited from having the leverage that working for large companies work for as part of my learning and development journey. About two and a half years ago, I started Freelance Credit Control with the vision of being able to give small and medium businesses the opportunity to have access to that knowledge and that experience, but in a way that works for them. At the end of the day, a small and medium business doesn't necessarily need a full-time credit controller. But at the end of the day, if you've got cash coming into the business, cash coming out of the business, you've got a business. If you're struggling to get that cash coming into the business, you've got a problem. Now, obviously, for startups and for small businesses, that cash flow is so much more important, because if that cash isn't flowing, then your business may not flourish and may not actually get through those initial years. So at the end of the day, there is a huge gap there for people that would benefit from having access to experts like me. So why shouldn't they have access to experts like me for the number of hours, the amount of time that they need, that their business needs, and can grow with their business? The business itself started in 2019, so we will this August be celebrating our fifth birthday, which really exciting, because obviously you do hear a lot said about a lot of businesses that don't quite make it to their fifth birthday. So I'm quite excited for us to be making it to our fifth birthday. It's been a roller coaster. It's been, yeah. There's been some interesting experiences in that time, but wouldn't trade it for the world. Felt like a natural evolution. I mean, as a credit controller working for corporate customers, working for big companies, I'd been there, I'd done it, I bought the t-shirt. I didn't know what the next challenge would be. I felt like I'd done it all, and when I stepped back and then looked at things, it was at that point I realised that smaller businesses would benefit from me. And so for me, the challenge then became, how do I deliver that? How can we deliver that? And that's pretty much how the whole freelance credit control and the share a credit controller kind of concept came about. When someone new comes in, that for me is always that special moment. You know, understanding what they need and what we can bring to their journey. We are privileged in getting to see those journeys and to support people to develop and to grow. I mean, I get quite excited about when someone brings me a ledger that's in a mess, and we then turn it around and we get it to a place where it's the nice shiny toy, where we can give back to the owners that opportunity to have a good night's sleep and not worry so much about the ledger. Because you at the end of the day, in the 22 years I've been doing this, I've never yet met a ledger that I've not been able to tidy up and clean up. And I feel pretty comfortable saying that I'm now at a point with my experience that, yeah, there's not one ledger that I can't do something with. We 100% like to know about the company's journey, and we like to know about the products. We like to know about the services. We don't want to know enough so that we can run the sales guys. That's not us. But what we do find is, if we have at least a rudimentary understanding, then when we're having conversations with people's clients, we don't get lost, and it's a lot easier for us to be able to navigate through things. And also, what we'll sometimes find is some simple queries. We get to the point where we've seen that in a dozen conversations, and we'll go, oh, we know the answer to this one. So we don't necessarily then need to go back to the owner, go back to the point of contact and say, guys, we spoke to George today, and George raised this query, because we know the answer to George's question, because it's a, if you like, almost a frequently asked question. Starting it itself, and actually having a concept where we can give back, where we can support the small and medium enterprises to be on a more level playing field with the big guys. At the end of the day, the big guys will have rooms, they will have banks of desks of guys like me. There's nothing I do that there are hundreds of other people out there that do, and do. Some people do to the same level as me, some better, some not quite as good. I mean, I'm not going to say I'm the best, the best ever. I mean, but you know, at the end of the day, the big guys have that, and for me, the greatest success is finding a way and delivering a way that small and medium enterprises can have that works for them. Doing all the parts of the business that I don't like. It's yours on that. I mean, at the end of the day, you give me an invoice, you tell me to go chase. You give me a ledger, tell me to go tie it. I can do that stuff. Like you say, you get me doing the marketing, you get me doing the sales. That's not my particular wheelhouse. I've had to learn it, but it's been fun learning it, and it also there are times when it has helped me as a credit controller, because as I understand the challenges of other areas, when I'm then trying to get cooperation from those areas to answer this question and stuff like that, I can then bring those experiences into how I'm approaching things and how I'm dealing with it. It is absolutely fundamental to the success. I mean, at the end of that, I will always say to people, and some people it surprises, if you don't have to offer credit to somebody, don't. Everything starts with your onboarding process. Have the conversation with the client, with the customer, and understand if they're in a position to pay now, take the money, because at the end of the day, you then eliminate the whole entire risk of somebody not paying, because if the money's in your bank account, good news, you've been paid. It's simple things like that. In Freelance Credit Control, we follow what we call the EMP model, which is elimination, mitigation, protection. At the end of the day, number one, elimination. If you don't have to offer the credit, don't. If they're happy to put the cash on the table straight away now, take it. Mitigation is obviously guys like me. And when we come to mitigating the risk, what we do is we operate very much a proactive collection methodology, where we don't just ring up, you haven't paid the invoice, you're overdue. We like to put courtesy calls into people, into your customers ahead of time, and they're not even collection calls. It is just literally a courtesy call just to confirm they've got the invoice. Ask them if they've got any issues or problems with the invoice, and make sure everything's all en route for the payment date. Because at the end of the day, a credit period isn't a case of, right, yeah, you put this invoice into intro for 30 days and ignore it. Credit terms are always up to 30 days. So then if they want to pay on 15 days, great, take the money on 15 days. Don't worry about it. You know, but at the end of the day, if you can identify any issues in that credit period, you can get it addressed, you still get paid on time, even if something does go wrong or if there is a query or issue. You know, and like I say, it is about mitigating those risks, but it's also about getting your onboarding process right. Onboard all of your clients in the right way. Ask to speak with the accounts department. Don't believe the buyer that says, oh, don't worry about it, I know Mabel in accounts, I'll make sure your invoices get paid. Don't believe them, because they may very well know Mabel, but if your invoice lands on Sybil's desk, you're in trouble. And at the end of the day, with all the big companies, what you'll find is they have certain standards that it doesn't matter how well you know the accounts guys, they can't get around them, because they've got ISOs, they've got BSs, they've got all their processes and the procedures, and there's half a dozen other procedures I could name from years gone by and stuff like that. So those procedures have to be followed. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter how well you know the accounts department, if you aren't following those those procedures, there is nothing that your buyer can do if they go and see Mabel with a tea cake that's going to fix it. At the end of the day, this is where a guy like me comes in, because having collected from various household names, I know ways of and the things. I've also heard various promises from buyers over the years that didn't actually come true. So yeah, am I cynic sometimes? Yes, but my job is to protect your cash flow. It's that simple.
Perfect. I was going to ask you the next question. What does the guardian of your cash flow mean?
And but basically, the guardian of your cash flow is exactly that. I'm almost like a pantomime villain. I'm the guy that says no. I'm the guy that makes sure you get paid, and also I'm the guy that you point to when you're having a sales conversation. You point to me and say, my credit controller will not allow me to give you that level of credit. My credit controller will not allow me to let you have 90 days to pay. At the end of the day, one of the things I sometimes say to people is, don't necessarily tell people you're the owner of the company. I mean, at the end of the day, be the operations director for the day. My credit manager won't allow me. I'm just a sales guy. You mean, build something that you are comfortable, an explanation that you are comfortable, but blame the credit controller. I've got broad shoulders. Even though I'm in the frame here, you can see I've got broad shoulders. I can take it. It's not a problem. I don't have a problem with ringing up your customers and saying, yeah, I'm sorry, the credit rating isn't there for what it is you're asking for. I understand what you're saying, but unfortunately, I've had those conversations with people for 20-something years. Been there, done it, bought the t-shirt, more than happy to have those conversations with your clients and say these things. Because sometimes the problem is, because you are trying to sell to someone, because you're trying to sell the benefits, you also then cannot be the guy that's saying no, because it creates conflict and it makes it hard for you to sell in if you then got to be the bad guy. Whereas this guy, I don't have a sales target. My job is to make sure there's money in the pot to pay everybody. Because as I said earlier, if you've got money coming in the business, as well as going out of the business, you've got a business. If all you've got is money going out of the business, good news, guys, you've got a hobby. Well, the largest single invoice I collected was £9.5 million. And for the record, I got that into terms. Now, I have collected some other invoices that are in the millions as well. So I would feel pretty comfortable in guessing at a figure somewhere between 20 and 30 million. But I can't. I won't put my hand on the Bible and swear to it, but certainly I would feel pretty comfortable that it is in the tens of millions that I've collected. And yeah, I mean, I've worked with some customers that during their darkest days, when their business was teetering on the edge, and we had to be creative, we had to be accommodating, and we then worked with them and grew them back up as customers. I've worked with customers that had restrictive credit limits and were spending £120,000 a month, and we, by changing the processes, understanding their pinch points, we grew them to £150,000 a month business for and there are ways that your credit controller can support you in growing sales. It's not just about being the big Christmas Grinch that's going to be mean to everybody because the invoice isn't paid. The debt recovery side of credit control is one side of things, but there is other sides and other values that your credit controller, your guardian, can bring to the table. At the end of the day, being a business owner, it's not this, oh, you're only going to work 10 hours a week and everybody else is going to work for you and you're going to work 10 hours and have this wonderful life. At the end of the day, being a business owner at times is stressful, at times it's challenging, and there are days when you wonder whether perhaps you should have carried on being that salaried employee and let someone else have the stress. But if you are passionate, if you truly believe in your project, in your service, in your business, you will get through those dark days. And at the end of the day, network. Build yourself up a team. guys that you can talk to, you can sound off to, guys that will support you, guys that can do the things that you are not particularly good at. You don't necessarily need to be an employee, but somebody that you can pick the phone up to and say, Simon, I'm struggling with this. Can you help me? And don't be afraid to access that help. At the end of the day, every business owner, we all have our origin stories. We're kind of like superheroes like that. We all have our origin stories. We've all experienced those challenges. And at the end of the day, tap into the business community. Attend networking meetings. And remember, networking meetings are for selling. Networking meetings are for getting to know people. And sometimes what you'll find is you'll chat with someone and they might be able to do the very thing that you're struggling with, and you then have a resolution.
My name is Sam. I run my own commercial photography company called Welly in Northamptonshire and beyond. Well, I'll be brutally honest. I actually wasn't planning on starting a business. I'd been a teacher for like 9 years, and I was working at MK College. I was in my 4th year, and unfortunately I got through to made redundant. So I was thinking, oh my God, what am I going to do? I don't know. And I was thinking, and I just thought, could I attempt to like start my own business? So I thought, why not try? So that's where it started really. It was just basically to see, could I actually do this? You know, all the 4 years of teaching all these students how to build their websites and things like that, so that they could progress into education, but also themselves. I thought, well, come on then, you know, put your actual own kind of teaching into action. So that's kind of where it started. I'll be honest, it was hard at first, and sometimes it still is a little bit. But that's only because I'd gone from somewhere. Well, basically, I was driving 45 minutes there and back every day, and it was a full-on long day, 5 days a week. So that pretty much it kind of became a little bit of my life. So in a positive from that, becoming self-employed was better for my own kind of mentality. And that's why I love it now. But the one thing I do miss is obviously having to push myself to do stuff. And that was a difficulty at first, like going to networking people and actually make myself talk to people that I don't know. And I think actually now I'm better at it. Because I feel like I'm a sociable person, but when I was put into that situation, even standing up in front of like people and students, you know, I'd obviously done it for years and I wasn't nervous, but still now I'm thinking, oh gosh, a little bit nervous then. But yeah, so that was kind of like my difficulties, the transition of like having loads to do to, what we're going to do now, which was lovely. Obviously, everybody likes a day off, don't they? But when you've had like 20 days off, you're thinking, oh, hang on a minute, I really do need to do something. So yeah, so that's my only kind of transition issues, I suppose. I take photos for other companies. I am kind of particular in certain areas because I like to work with fitness and food companies, just mainly for my own interest, because I wanted to become like quite a healthy photographer, if that makes sense. But actually, how that has turned out is not completely like that at all. And I do still work with food and hospitality companies because I enjoy that element. And I work with people in general. It doesn't necessarily that you have to be like a fitness professional. It's a business that wants images that can help promote them via website or social media, as well as doing property. So property seems to be quite a big high for me at the moment. So I do that on a freelance basis with other companies. They employ me. I go and do the property photos for their business. So it's kind of all kind of like linked in. So now it means that I can offer one client some products like food pictures, property pictures, headshots, pictures of themselves, their staff, and that, action photos where it's basically they're doing something or they're serving someone. So it means that like one client can get a variety of images just from one person, which is what I can provide for that client. Well, obviously, as a photographer, I would say they're vital. But I do think they are, because, to be honest, even when I write little comments on my websites to say, oh, how am I going to benefit you, blah, 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 blah. And actually, part of it is, if a person sees your images, that's the first impression you're giving them. Just as well as like when you first meet a person, that's the first impression you're giving them. So if those images aren't high quality or they're pixelated or they're just not in focus correctly, then that's the impression you're giving them. Is that the impression you want to give? So that, I think that kind of answers the question without me answering it. I think it's important to how you are as a person. And what you want to show. Do you want to show that you are a social person that likes to go out drinking? To all your clients, is that the kind of business you're in? So I guess it's really, I'm not saying that you can't have those kind of images and show them, because I think it's good to show your personality. But as a headshot, it's the first impression they get. I mean, mine is a picture of me drinking tea. Obviously, the impression it's giving you is I always drink tea, which pretty much is correct. But I did that purposely because I wanted them to think that, I'm happy to sit down and be approachable to people, even though technically I am actually sitting behind my laptop, which can be seen as a barrier. So it's all these different things that you may not necessarily think of, but if you work with a photographer, they might think, actually, that's going to prevent you. Just like, crossing my arms and things like that. It's just about how you portray yourself in person and visually that could bring people to your door. I keep thinking they said that it's only been 4 years, but then I realised the other day that it's actually I'm coming into my 5th year. Well, actually, this is my 5th year. So I officially started my business in 2019 on the 26th of September. Okay, so my initial steps were to go. I worked with the library. And they did certain research workshops, so that was really beneficial for me because it meant then I learned ways to promote myself that I didn't particularly know. Also, how to write a business plan, and all these different things as well. What I also did was visit those workshops, but for me, my main thing was obviously to learn. Was to research. So I researched into different types of photography genres, did a few kind of practical tests and things like that, just to identify kind of where I wanted to go. Because in my previous thing, I've run a photography studio, taking pictures of babies and kids. I've done wedding photography, but neither of those were where I wanted to continue. So I knew it was going to be like commercial. So then obviously quite a lot for me is that I researched and re-taught myself key things so that I could obviously take better images and put, quality images on my website. I think it's been really beneficial for me because it means that I've actually been able for people to meet myself. I'm being able to meet other people, build relationships and rapport with other people. I also found that during COVID, because unfortunately I started in 2019, COVID hit, and then I was like, what am I going to do? Because I'd already started to meet people through FSB and so, which was great, to build clients and get clients coming to my door, and then it was suddenly dead. But luckily I have other people that I know for years that have been in business, which meant then we were able to do virtual networking, which was great because again it meant that you're able just to basically relax and just talk to people, and although I do like to talk, but I also can shut up. But I like to, but at least this way I was able to listen to people, learn about their problems, because obviously COVID, a lot of issues came about for other companies, which meant then I was able to think, right, okay, how do I want to strategically do my business? Because right now I haven't got high overheads like these guys have got with loads of employees and things like that. How can I make it better for me? And it just helped me make a few kind of overall choices, because originally I did think about having a studio, and I just thought, actually no. And then I came out of COVID thinking, right, I'm an on-location photographer, so all my equipment I take to people and do it there, or I arrange a place and I do it there instead of actually them coming to a studio. Don't get me wrong, on some occasions that's not the best thing for everybody and it doesn't work for everybody, but that's what I offer. So it was good. It was a good way to learn from other people, build rapport, and obviously, keep building my own business and clients coming through my door. I think there's so many different photographers out there, but they might all be like personal brand photographers. They might all be commercial photographers. They might be wedding photographers and so. So I class myself as a commercial photographer for one reason, and that is that I just work with other companies and I offer that as a photographer. The difference between me and another commercial photographer is mainly this year I've really tried to reevaluate my own values, what I like, what I want to do, and how I want to be portrayed. And through that means that I always want to offer my clients my full attention. I want to learn about their business so that then I can come up with creative ideas to help their business, and become more of a supportive role rather than always you need to do this or you need to do that. Obviously I will be proactive in that way, but it will be more kind of a collaboration between me and another company. And what I would like it to then end is whoever I work with, they always are wanting to come back, which is great. They're happy to refer us, but it means that you kind of keep that nice, consistent kind of support throughout. And I think as a photographer, well, I don't think necessarily as a photographer it really matters on that, but as a business and a sole trader, that's the one thing that I miss is actually having that. So I feel like if I actually offer it, then that makes my life a bit nicer, and then hopefully it'll make others nicer as well. I really do try to schedule myself. So I've got obviously all of my Google Calendar is all linked in. So I've got a personal Google Calendar, got a business Google Calendar, and I've also got this system that I put all my information on, and it all links together. And now I've started to add my personal and my work together in one thing rather than having it separate. And I find that works better for me because it means then I know for certain that I'm going to go out Saturday night and that's my time, or I'm going to go to a yoga class Monday morning And that's my time. And I do that every single week, to be fair. Monday morning, I don't start actually work until after 11:30, because I always go to that same yoga class. Obviously, I do some other things, but I feel like if I schedule certain bits into my diary, then that means that I get it I move it into being a habit as well, which I think works better rather than just being it sporadical. Do you know what I mean? Because at least then you know you're going to do it, which means then you take yourself away from any stresses or any situations that you just need to take time out from. I haven't obviously entered any awards. Not saying that that's not something I'd want to do, but for me, I think that would be something to do with like photography. That would be an amazing one. And I think really the success is obviously one, still being in business, and actually changing and having the confidence to fulfill what I actually want. I think over the 4 years, and maybe like other people might agree that this has happened, is that when you first start out, you have this like kind of idea, this is how my photography is going to be, and maybe it's because I had a little bit of the COVID in between, I don't know, but my business has kind of gone a bit like that, and it's not, and I don't think it's kind of controlled me rather than me controlling it, and I think actually now I've got the confidence in myself to actually control it and go, right, actually, no, I don't want to do that. And I know that a few businesses have told me before, she's like, not that I would ever say no personally to business or anything like that, but it's also then, being able to turn around and say, well, actually, that's not what I do. But I'm happy to recommend somebody else, but it's not what I do. Rather than just saying, oh yeah, no problem, I need the business, right, I'm going to learn it, I'm going to try and do it that way. And actually, I think actually if you get better at what you do, then you're already succeeding because you're giving out a better quality service to everybody. So I think for me, it's actually being in a business, but also actually my own confidence in being a sole trader, which has obviously improved. And yeah, the tip I would say is to make sure that you're prepared to do it, if that makes sense. And I mean by the fact that there's going to be highs and there's going to be lows. Everybody has them, and there's going to be moments that maybe, I don't know, you may not have any clients coming through the door, but then it's it could be that you're really, really busy and it's amazing, you've got loads of clients coming through the door, but actually you are overworking yourself. So there's like two ends of the spectrum. So I think actually really you just got to be confident and actually decide before you start exactly what you're prepared to do and what you're not prepared to do, so that then you don't waver down certain routes that could cause more damage. Because if you're overworking yourself, that's going to cause damage. If you've not got enough work, that isn't going to help your confidence, and it's not going to help, obviously, progress, if that makes sense. So I think maybe it's just be really clear on what you want out of it before you start.
We all want the bare necessities of life. To have a place we can call home. To have a family that's happy and united. To have protection for your loved ones. To have a good job where you're valued. But life is full of ups and downs, and sometimes we all need a bit of friendly legal expertise to smooth things out. Visit our website to find out more. Wilson Brown Solicitors. We're all the help you need.
I'm Michelle, I run Lime Design Studio, I specialise in graphic design and branding, and we're based in Rushden. We started in 2010, March 2010, which obviously was recession year, which was a good year to start. But I had been in the industry for a while, and I had started gathering clients on my own behind obviously working within a company. That made me realise actually I liked that client interaction where you don't really get when you're sitting behind a computer in a studio normally. So that's why I started doing what I was doing, and it just kind of went from there really. My whole approach was that client focus, and it still is now, hence why I started up originally. And that's what our key value is when it comes to our clients. And we've just, the business has changed over those 14 years now. It was just me, but recently, in the last few years, it's kind of changed my mindset to build a business with actually having people with it. So it's quite a drastic change from when we began, but it's good and exciting. There's been so many highlights from running the business. I mean, there's obviously always some downs, but the highlights of, the relationships I have with my clients is just brilliant. I absolutely love that. And they're friends in that way as well. We've got so many clients that we've had now for over 10 years, and we are classed as a team member, and it's brilliant. Last year, I entered 3 awards last year for the first time ever within running the business, and we were finalists for all 3. So that was a massive ego boost, to be honest. So it made me feel like I was actually doing the right thing. And some of the projects we've been working on as well, we do packaging design as well. And when you see that, any design work that's out there, it's just always such a lift. You feel like, I've actually, I've done that. It's brilliant, And so, there's many things, but I'd say they're the kind of key ones at the moment. There has been many things when it comes to learning, when it comes to business. So not just in the way of things that are going wrong, but also the way things have had to be adapted, and how your thought process had to go. Like I mentioned, I went based, it was going to be just me as a designer, and then having children and life changes, it made you have to think differently to how the business will cope and be successful, and that client focus as it always has been. So they have been my learning curves of how to adapt within the business, purely being the fact that I am a designer. Business had to fall in place. I had to work out that kind of structure behind it, the systems and all those aspects of things. And then to be able to make sure that I do it in the right way, it's the support behind it and making sure that you've got the right people that you can bounce off, should we say. So they are my massive learning curves, is making sure I've got the right people behind me, and that I do things in the right direction going forward. Having to take every single role of a business when you start up, and design was my passion. Design is what I know, and all the other business elements like accounts and the legal side and terms and conditions and all that aspect of it, it was an absolute minefield. But luckily I went straight into networking when I first started. Again, picked up the right people that could support me there. But I'd say the toughest one I've had is, I don't know how way to say this, but you always aim for having great clients. That's your approach, and you sometimes don't always get a good client. And the hardest thing was actually to get rid of a client, and that was a horrible feeling. But again, I had someone behind me that I could bounce off and go, is this the way to do this? And they were able to kind of give me the guidance to actually make things better. And it was a horrible time, to be honest. You're on the edge of your seat with this person potentially going to walk in your door and things like that. But no, that was probably the hardest part. And so you reflect on that, and you can gauge people a lot more since, I think, from there. So I'd say, several things, but that was probably the hardest. So, all I'd say is, obviously, when you're starting out, you're always on a budget. You are, you don't know where things are going to go. You don't know what to do for the best. You try to prioritise. All I'd say is, if you're trying to get yourself out there and you're trying to get work, you do need to make sure that you've got certain things in place that will obviously get you out there. So brand awareness is a massive thing. having at least a simple logo, something that people can start getting familiar with you, not just a name that hasn't got an identity behind it, should we say. And it is just about speaking to people. If you've got something that's tangible, you could start getting your reviews in place, just to, even if it's a 1 or 2, it will create that credibility and awareness of you to build on that brand going forward. Having a logo will get you established in the right environment, in the right place. If you are, say, just text, people can't identify with you. So a logo allows you to have that position, have the personality, make people understand where you're coming from, and it always obviously it talks about what your company is. A logo needs to be representative of what you're about. If that's the only thing you can afford at the time, that is definitely something that you should put yourself into. It's that familiarity, and people will be able to find you. That is the key thing. With brand guidelines, I do find that startup businesses don't tend to go there because it is obviously that extra cost, but it does create that consistency within your brand, and it gives those pointers of how you should reflect the elements that resemble the identity. We do a lot of guidelines for companies that are more established because they tend to understand the reasoning behind it more, and they obviously do more marketing and they do more in-house, because even with your guidelines, it's not just marketing, it's not just what your client sees, also what happens in-house. It's that reputation you build from the inside out. But guidelines obviously give you that starting point. They allow you to actually note down elements of what the business is about, the values, the mission, the personality you want to perceive. So it helps you kind of guide yourself going forward. And again, it adapts as you grow, because your business will obviously change, and that will be reflected into your brand guidelines. So we do work with quite a few startup businesses in various different industries and various areas or services. We help by just having the chat initially. It's all to do with where they've come from, what they're actually trying to achieve now, and the business they're obviously trying to go in, whether it even reflects what they were doing before. It's that kind of story behind where they are now. We help them by obviously helping with their logo design and their branding. We have packages available to allow those initial budgets to be set in place. They've got something to stand on, they've got something to start with, whether it be obviously a flyer, logo, a little brochure, something like that. It just gives them that kind of confidence to kind of start setting themselves up and getting out there into the world that they want to be in. But it is to do with the conversation, really, because sometimes when you set up yourself, you're not speaking to someone, so the ideas and the thoughts that you have in your head don't always come out. So when you have that conversation with someone, it makes them think a little bit deeper, which allows them to focus more, have a bit more of a clearer direction, which then reflects onto their branding and their logos going forward. So obviously once you've got your logo and that's all in place, business cards are obviously a good starting point, again depending on the industry that you're in. But if you're planning to do networking or anything like that, obviously it's a great tactile element to have. And letterheads, again, depending on the profession, we do still do a lot of printed letterheads for people, but it is obviously going digitalised as well now. So we do still create designed letterheads for digital purposes. And that also goes for flyers as well. We do a lot of flyers that are print-based, but we also arrange that to be digitalised, because obviously you can do a lot more things with digital as well. So you have links that go to websites and such like that. So they would be the 3 kind of key things I'd say as a starting point for any startup business. I would say the way to organise overwhelm, that would be my key thing. I have it weekly, to be honest, when it comes to that. There's so much that always has to be done, and it's making sure that you can prioritise. And it's not just on the client's work, which I still need to overcome that, but working on the business as well. I would say that's a massive thing when it comes to running your own business. And I still haven't managed to balance that in the right way yet, because we're very client focused, but that's definitely a key one for me, is making sure that you can deal with overwhelm. And I'd say the main thing as well, to be honest, is being yourself. You know, whenever I speak to any of my clients, the reason they come to us is because I'm pretty much an open book. I don't know whether that's wise all the time, but yeah, that's why we get the clients we have, and we have a great relationship. So don't try to be someone that you're not, because people buy from people, and so you need to make sure you're honest in your approach.